Hey, good to see you again. Nick from Transform My Poker, and we're going to talk about what to do when you're losing during a session or during a tournament. I always feel I should open with a joke. Don't have one. Okay, on the fly. A man walks into a live tournament room. He continuously gets dealt Jack 4 offsuit. All his big hands get cracked. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. It was me. I hated it. Didn't work, did it? That's the sensation that I'm going to talk to you about there. That feeling that you're out of control, either because you've lost pots or, as happens in tournaments very often, you've dropped below your starting stack, or you had chips and you've lost chips. That feeling that things are not going to plan during a session because you're losing chips, or in a tournament because you're short stacked, you want to be big stacked and so on. Now, what I'm not going to do is talk to you about specific playing tactics in this video. We're going to do that in a lot of other videos. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to control your emotions in that situation and how to get the right mindset so that you can come back, so that you can make good decisions and turn that losing session into a winning session. Now, this isn't something that's talked about a lot in poker training and poker content, and I think that's a mistake. I think the reason it's not talked about is because a lot of professional players have got to the point where it's not really an issue for them. They just keep making good decisions, almost robotic-like. But for most players, us mortals, then this is a real issue. So let's talk about how we deal with it, how we deal with losing during a session. 5 things to think about, including some concrete advice as to what to do about it. But first of all, let's tackle the big picture, the most important thing, and that's to disconnect emotion. Disconnect emotion. And this is one of those classic, easy for me to write on the whiteboard, hard to do things. Because if we could all just disconnect emotion during poker and just make logical, analytical decisions, well, we'd all be winning a lot more money. You wouldn't be watching training videos, and a lot more would be right with the world. But we're not made like that, or at least most of us aren't. You are going to be affected if you're losing during a session to one degree or another. So the most important thing you can do to help your poker in that situation is train yourself to not have emotion about it. I'm going to go into some specific ways about how to actually do this in real time, actually during a game. But the most important thing is to understand that's what you need to do. In general, emotion's not very helpful in poker. A little bit of adrenaline maybe is helpful to be kind of switched on and in the game and focused. But beyond that, it's probably going to compromise your decision-making ability. And it can do it either ways. Positive emotion can be not too helpful. Negative emotion is definitely unhelpful because it'll do a number of things. Depending on your personality in the situation, it might make you force it. So it might make you try and get back those chips you've lost more quickly than the spots and the cards dictate you can, which can be a big error. It might make you become very defensive. Maybe you've had this sensation of feeling like you're losing and trying to protect what short chips you have left or what lesser chips you have left. And that can make you miss spots and make mistakes on the conservative end. Or it can just make you mad and lose it and tilt. Now, I've commentated and played in some of the biggest tournaments anywhere, and I've seen even really, really strong players tilt when they've lost a big pot or things aren't going their way in a tournament. So don't feel bad if it happens to you, but do work on sorting it out. So maybe after this video, have a think about how you react when things don't go your way during a session or during a tournament. How you react when you lose chips. If you have a lot of chips and then you lose chips, just when things are going on the schneid, as they used to say. And then write down some of the emotions that you have and how you could counteract those. And if this is a big problem for you, maybe even write it down and have it in the tournament with you or on your phone with you when you play poker. So when you feel those negative emotions, you can actually look at something rational that gets you back on track. And now let's talk about a couple of those things, more rational things that we can do. Now, the first thing, the most obvious thing, is to take a break. So take breaks. Now, this is easier if you're a cash game player or you're playing, shorter sit and goes or tournaments. Obviously harder in a big tournament. However, I would argue that a 5-minute break where you miss a few hands, you post a few blinds and antes, unless you're really short stacked, unless you're kind of under 20 big blinds, a short break is probably going to be a net positive for you in the tournament. And if you really are struggling with some negative emotions, some feelings of loss or being out of control or like the world's against you, those kind of feelings, if you can use a break to get rid of them, then that break is going to massively overall improve your chances, even if you miss a few hands. I've, seen very good players do this habitually, especially after a big pot. Phil Hellmuth, interestingly, does it after when he wins a big pot. I've seen him do it several times. So taking a break, and it's not just taking a break for the sake of it. Don't take a break and come back to the table or turn back to the screen in the same mindset. Take a break to change your mindset. Quick ways to do this: some deep breathing to get oxygen to the brain and lower the blood flow a little bit. Some rational statements to your brain. Treat your brain like a kid in these emotional spots. Remember that you're still in the tournament. You're still in the cash game. Tell yourself or identify the profitable players at your table. Maybe use those statements that you wrote down and prepared before about why emotion isn't helpful and what you should focus on. Hint, it's always the cards and the decisions and the opponents, not what's happened in the past. And use that break to refocus and change your state. Now, here's the nuclear option to deal with losing during a session, if you can. And if things are really bad, end the session. Now, end the session ? Obviously, this is only possible if you're a cash game player. If you're a sit and go player, then you can end the session after your next round of sit and goes is finished. Or if you're playing smaller tournaments, that's true. Obviously, if you're in a big tournament or a series of big tournaments, that's probably not going to be a very good idea. Nick said end the session, so I just left. Don't do that. But if you have an opportunity to end the session, then that is something you should consider if you are negatively affected emotionally by losses. The way to decide is to answer one very simple question. Ask yourself, can I still play my best poker? Can I still play my best poker? So if the answer is yes, if you can refocus by taking a break, if you can put the losses in the past, get back to focusing in the moment, then continue to play. Obviously, that's not a problem. If you can't, then there's really no argument to continue to play. Cash games, sit and goes, small tournaments, they'll always be there tomorrow for you to go back to. Or the next day, or even 6 hours later during the same day, you addict. But it's totally fine to end a session, always, right? It's actually obviously a profitable idea in some situations. So ask yourself that question: can I still play my best poker? Can I still make good, clear thinking decisions, or am I too bothered by what's happened? All right, this may not be an option in tournaments. So what else can we do? Well, there's a very important thinking technique which you should be aware of for your poker, and it's called closing the loop, or I call it that. Let's say it's called that. Close the loop. What happens with our big fat brains, or our tiny childish brains, is that they are question answering machines. So the way our brains work is they form neural pathways between things that we know to be true. So you ask in your primitive state, can I eat that? You try eating it. It tastes good. It nourishes you. It doesn't poison you. So you now know that you can eat that apple or whatever it was. And that neural pathway forms. When we can't get our questions answered, our brains worry, right? Because they worry about threats. They worry if there's something we don't understand. They worry that something's going to hurt us again in the future. And that is, let's call it an open loop. So what happens when you play a poker tournament or a poker session is that you lose hands, or you are losing, your stack is getting shorter, and you're asking yourself questions about why you're in this situation. Now, the superficial level of questions might be, why did I play that hand badly? Why did he have to have the nuts? Why did I bluff there when it wasn't really a bluffing spot? Why did I play that hand in the first place? Those kind of poker questions. It might spiral during bad spots to more negative thoughts like, this always happens to me. This always happens to me with this dealer. Why is everything against me? Why can't I win at poker? Like those bigger, more negative thoughts. Those are more of a problem. Work on closing those loops, because thinking about those things is not going to help you during a session or during a tournament. A very simple, practical thing you can do is when you play a big hand or an important hand and you lose it, write the hand down on your phone or on a notepad, or record it on your computer if you're not playing live. Record the hand and say to yourself, literally say to your brain, not out loud, that'll be weird, but say to your brain, I will look at and analyse that hand later and see if there's anything else I could have done, but I'll deal with that later. Now I'm going to focus on the next hand. And that simple technique will close the loop and stop you fixating on what's happened in the past. It's a really helpful technique. Please do try it if you struggle with getting attached to former results during a session. It's really, really helpful. Now, you can also do the same thing with those bigger, more kind of negative emotional questions. It's just a little bit harder to do because obviously they are provoking some strong negative emotions. But you can actually write down during a break very quickly the question your brain keeps asking you, which is, why is it all against me? Why can't I win at poker? And then write down a logical, rational answer. So why does this always happen to me in this poker room? You might write down, no, I've won hands in this poker room and won chips in this poker room. Write down an example. There's nothing special about here or these cards or this tournament. I just need to keep making good decisions. So that's just one example. But try and close the loop. You don't necessarily have to actually write it down. You might be able to just do it in your head. But make sure you're not asking the same questions which don't have answers or don't have positive answers during a session. All right, the final technique you can use is just to be in the now. Be in the moment. Be in the moment. Ooh. Be in the moment. So all of this stuff we've been talking about has been trying to get you away from thinking about the past and when you lost chips and when things didn't go your way, and get you thinking about the present, right? Get you thinking about the next hand. Now, this is one of those things, again, which is probably a little bit obvious and a little bit easy for me to say outside the heat of battle, but it's really important that you're doing it during your poker, because the cards don't know what's just happened to you. The chips don't know what's just happened to you. Your opponents do know what's just happened to you, interestingly, and sometimes they will over-adjust. Maybe they'll think you're on tilt. Maybe they'll think you're gambling, or the opposite. They might think you're gun shy. So be aware of your image at the table, especially live. However, in terms of your decision-making mainly, the cards and chips don't know your history. They don't know what's just happened, right? So they are not going to change their frequencies of coming out. If you're changing your decision-making based on something that's just happened, you're just making a fundamental mistake, right? In most situations. So we need to be in the present and in the moment. Lots of ways to do this. Experiment with what works for you. A good way to do it is just to really focus hard on the hand in play. If you don't have a playable hand, keep focusing on what other players are doing. Guess their ranges. Get your head in the game. A good way, if you're doing this, if you're taking a break or just to step back at the table after you've folded, is to do a quick table report. So ask yourself, what do I know about seat one? What are his strengths and weaknesses? What's their chip stack? What are they likely to do? What can I do against them? And just go around the table doing that. That'll get your head back in the game. Or just summarize your current situation. So you might say, yes, you're playing cash session. You might say, yeah, I've lost some cash, but I'll look at those hands later, close the loop. For now, I know this is a profitable game. Seats 2, 4, and 5 on my right are all worse players than me and are making mistakes. I just need to focus on the next hand. Say something like that to yourself. If you're in a tournament, reappraise your situation. If you've lost chips, you're still in the tournament. Plenty of people have come back from 1, 2, 4 big blinds to win the whole thing. Why can't that be you today? Say to yourself, I've still got X big blinds. I've still got 20 big blinds. That's plenty of room to make some moves. That's plenty of room to accumulate. And now start thinking about the spots that you can use your 20 big blinds. Do anything to get back into the moment, because you can only play good poker if you're focusing on the hand in play. All right, I hope that helps you. Some kind of touchy-feely emotional stuff in there, but also some practical things you can do at the table and during a session. So important to be doing everything you can to play your best poker at all times. And I know it's challenging, right? I know it's hard when you're losing and things aren't going your way, but it's your responsibility, if you want to get good results, to turn those sessions round and to get back to thinking as clearly and playing your best poker as you can. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to take your poker to the next level, then click the link underneath the video. You'll come over to our site. You can sign up by email and get your hands on a free training resource that will get you improvement in your game tonight. Just click that link under the video to get it. Now, if you've enjoyed this, then please do let us know by liking the video and leave a comment. If you've got a question for us, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're enjoying these videos, let's make this relationship official. You can go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you'll be the very first to know when we publish a new video or new lesson designed to help your game. All right, thanks again for watching, and remember to run good, because that's the hard part.